So with the Ace Pro 2 finally being here, you may be wondering whether you should stick with the Ace Pro if you already have it, or whether you should get the Ace Pro 2 over the Ace Pro if you're looking for a vlogging camera. In this video, which is also sponsored by Insta360, I'm just going to help you try and figure out which one might be the best one for you. In some of the next clips, you'll see that I've got the Rode Wireless Pro attached. I had it on me because I wasn't entirely sure how the audio was going to come out from both of the cameras, because it was quite windy and I just wanted to have a backup in case the audio was just inaudible and you couldn't hear anything. But I didn't actually, throughout this entire video, have to use any of that Rode Wireless Pro audio, because the audio from both of the cameras was very clear. But I'll talk about audio a little bit later. And I'm also going to show you footage without actually telling you which footage came from which camera. So if you're trying to make this decision based on improved image quality, because the Ace Pro 2 does have an upgraded 1/1.3 inch 8K sensor, so the image quality should be better. You can decide. But I want you to make that decision based on not knowing which camera is which, so that you don't have any kind of bias when you're looking at the footage. So trying to get as much footage as possible. So it's a little bit of a shady area here, a bit more in the shade. I'm walking under a tree. I'm gonna walk under this tree. Do you know what? I've never been up there before. I'm not going to tell you which camera is which. You can decide for yourself which one you like the look of, and at some point during the video I will tell you, because there's also another feature, or something that is completely new, that for vloggers I think is awesome, and I've tried it out and it makes a massive difference between the Ace Pro and the Ace Pro 2. So that is coming up. So one of the other things to mention about the upgraded sensor is the fact that you can now shoot 8K, not just in 24 FPS like it was for the Ace Pro, but also shooting in 8K 25 and 8K 30. So I know this isn't going to necessarily matter to a lot of people, because a lot of people aren't going to shoot in 8K because the file sizes are huge and it's just not necessarily needed. The one time that for me, I think I would be shooting in 8K is if I wanted to then zoom into the footage. And even though you've still got clarity zoom across both of the cameras, being able to have that freedom to do it in post at any point is one of the benefits of having 8K and still getting good quality footage for when you then render the footage in 4K or 1080. So yeah, just having the other frame rates does make that possible. So as I mentioned, both of the cameras still have the clarity zoom, and there's still a few other features that haven't changed across the two different cameras. So you've still got the pause recording, which is really useful, and cancel recording, which is also very useful. You've also got the gesture control so that you can start and stop recording via hand gestures, and also take photos via hand gestures. And you've also got loop recording. The other recording mode that both cameras has is the ability to pre-record footage. But the difference with the Ace Pro 2 is that you now have that up to 120 seconds, but that's only when you shoot in 1080p. If shooting in 8K, then you can't use pre-recording, but that's also the same for the Ace Pro. But with the Ace Pro 2, if shooting in 4K, you get up to 90 seconds, which is longer than the Ace Pro. So it's quite an upgrade if you use the pre-recording feature and you do anything where you need to have that extra time in the pre-recording. So just coming back to the sensor and the video quality, active HDR is now available shooting up to 60 FPS. So this is great if you shoot at higher frame rates, and it's just going to give you, with active HDR, it gives you better dynamic range. It levels out your shadows and your highlights so that you can have a more balanced image. But before I move on, it would actually be useful for you to know which camera is which now, before I show you the next set of footage and also talk about the feature that I'm going to talk about shortly. And so camera 1 is the Ace Pro and camera 2 is the Ace Pro 2. Which camera did you feel yourself leaning towards the most? Drop a comment. This is the footage, what it looks like when it's not got active HDR on. So this now has active HDR on, and I feel like you can see a bit more detail in the clouds, maybe, perhaps. But yeah, this is with active HDR on in the same spot that I was just in, so that you can see what the footage looks like. Now, the day that I filmed that footage, it was obviously overcast, as is the case for the UK most of the time, but it gives you an idea of what the footage looks like in conditions where it's not necessarily as bright as it could be. But I did think that there was a difference in the clouds, where having HDR on and having HDR off, even though it wasn't necessarily high contrast situation. Because with HDR, it's supposed to make the biggest difference when in situations where you do have high contrast, and particularly when you're backlit. So for example, the sun is facing me at the moment, whereas if I turn around, then I should be well lit and the scene should be well lit. But for those kind of situations, that's when HDR is supposed to make the biggest difference. Whilst I'm on the subject of image quality, I guess now would be a good time to actually talk about low light. Both the Ace Pro and the Ace Pro 2 have a dedicated low light video mode called Pure Video, but the Ace Pro 2 has Pure Video Plus, which you can shoot in up to 60 FPS if you need that higher frame rate. The Ace Pro, however, has a low light stabilization setting to help eliminate jitters. The Ace Pro 2 doesn't have this, but it seems completely fine, as there aren't any noticeable jitters anyway, which is normally caused by the stabilization not working so well in low light. But this is one of the things that seems like it was upgraded with the Ace Pro 2 anyway. So before I move on to one of the features that I think has become one of my favourite upgrades with the Ace Pro 2, the Ace Pro 2 does now have the ability for you to play around with your footage a little bit more and customize it to get the look that you specifically want, because it now has iLog. However, it is only 8-bit due to hardware limitations, and so I'm just going to play around with this over the coming weeks to see how much I can actually push around the footage. So if this is a feature that interests you, then keep an eye out for a follow-up video. But aside from log, you've still got the same standard, vivid, and the 2 Leica specific colour profiles, along with some other creative profiles. But because you do now have iLog, the Ace Pro 2 doesn't have the flat profile that the Ace Pro has. Okay, so remember at the beginning how I mentioned that there's a feature that for vloggers is going to be insane, and honestly, it's one of the things that when I found out about it, I was most excited about the camera, because it takes a lot of faff out of things and it makes things convenient, and it's to do with the audio. So the audio's massively been updated. There's a new audio algorithm, so with the Ace Pro 2 the audio should sound a lot clearer, whereas with the Ace Pro, yeah, you can just definitely hear a difference. I can hear a difference anyway, especially when I'm in a situation where there is a lot of background noise going on. You can hear that the audio with the Ace Pro 2 is a lot clearer, and there's also a setting in the audio settings which with the Ace Pro you had direction, so that was when you were speaking to the camera, it would pick up your voice a bit better. In the Ace Pro 2 you now have voice enhancement, and with the new updated audio algorithm it does a better job at filtering out that background noise when you're talking to the camera, and there is a lot of like traffic, for example, going by, or a lot of people talking, then it's gonna do a better job at filtering that out, and the audio does sound clearer. It's a little bit breezy. It's a big gust of wind coming by at the moment, so this is what the audio is sounding like in comparison to what the audio sounds like on the Ace Pro. But the thing that I think is absolutely great and that I love is the fact that the Ace Pro 2 has a wind guard, and it comes as standard, it comes as default. It's not something that you have to buy separately and then attach to the camera. It also already comes installed on the camera, and it's basically cutting out any wind when you're filming outdoors. So if you tend to use microphones and want to use external microphones because it can be windy and you want to get clean, clear audio, then this wind guard actually does a really good job at cutting out that wind. I've tried it on a windy day and it does a really great job. You can probably hear the difference now. So the Ace Pro doesn't have anything. The Ace Pro 2 does have its wind guard on, and you can still hear the wind sometimes, depends how strong the wind is, but it makes such a difference in actually just dulling it down and cutting it out. And if you don't want to use the wind guard, you do also have a mic clip that comes with the camera as well. So the wind guard, obviously, if you're going to be going underwater, you don't want to have that on, you're going to have to take it off, but then you can just put the mic clip back onto the camera, and yeah, you can have that. And again, that comes in the box as well if you'd have to buy it separately. So that feature with the audio, for those of you that don't want to use an external mic because you just want to keep the setup as simple as possible, then that is just such an awesome feature for an action camera, honestly. So one of the new updates with the battery when it comes to the Ace Pro 2 is the fact that it now has a new 1800 milliamp hour battery, and it also has fast charging, so you will get 80% within 18 minutes roughly, and 100% within 47 minutes. I haven't tested this to the minute, so I can't say whether that is completely accurate, but in that kind of ballpark, it does kind of seem like my battery was fully charged within, you know, around 45 minutes or so, a little bit more than 45 minutes, definitely under 60 minutes. The other thing with the battery as well, in fact, just see how much that makes a difference. So the Ace Pro 2 is on 75% at the moment, and the Ace Pro is on 74%. I've been shooting the exact same settings across both cameras, so it doesn't seem like it's made a huge difference in terms of how quickly the battery drains. But the other thing is that the Ace Pro 2 has an endurance mode now, so you can switch over to that. It will mean that certain features aren't going to work, but it will just give you an extra bump in the battery, so you can get a little bit more juice if you switch it over into that mode. And it is said that it will give you about 50% more battery life when you're shooting in 4K 30. Again, I haven't tried this out fully, so I can't say whether that is accurate or not. It's something that I'll test as time goes on. But yeah, there are certain features that just aren't available with that, which makes sense, which is how it's trying to preserve the battery. There's also another feature that the camera has that I'm pretty sure, no, I don't think any other action camera has this. And it's to do with charging up other devices. So if you had your phone, for example, and you were out, and you didn't have a power bank or anything like that, you could actually use the Ace Pro 2 to actually charge up your phone or anything else that you would need to charge. All you'd have to do is use a USB-C to USB-C cable and plug it into the camera, plug it into whatever device you're trying to charge, and that's going to give you simulate a power bank. So that's actually really useful. Okay, so there are also a couple of other updates, I guess they're kind of smaller ones, but the screen has been updated on the Ace Pro 2, so it's slightly larger, and also the Ace Pro 2 has 6% brightness. You can kind of see, you can see that it is a little bit brighter, but it's not that noticeable, to be honest. And I will say that the screen on the Ace Pro 2, however, does look a lot clearer and a lot more crisp than the screen on the Ace Pro. The Ace Pro kind of makes you look like you're looking at a low-res preview, which you are, basically, but you can see that it doesn't look as high quality as the Ace Pro 2. Obviously, it's not the final quality, so it's not something that you would actually even need to worry about, but it's just nice to have a clearer view on the Ace Pro 2. The Ace Pro 2 also has the ability to use timecode, so it's got a timecode feature, so you can easily sync cameras and microphones when you're shooting multiple setups, which is quite useful. And the Ace Pro 2 also shoots photos up to 50 megapixels now, whereas the Ace Pro was just 48 megapixels. So for me, for vlogging, I particularly like the update to do with the audio. I think the update with the audio is great, especially with the wind guard, having that now, and also being able to shoot in 8K with the different various frame rates instead of just having the 24 FPS. But what do you think though? Are any of the new features and the upgrades enough to make you want to pick the Ace Pro 2 over getting the Ace Pro? Or maybe now you're kind of thinking, okay, yeah, maybe you're looking at getting the Ace Pro 2, but how does it compare to the Osmo Action 5 Pro, which was also recently released? So if that is something that you're also struggling with, then it will be well worth checking out the video that I post right here, where I compare the Osmo Action 5 Pro to the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, and I'll also drop a link in the description when that video is ready as well.